The House of Vanyr'Thal, Part 1, narrated format. Whispers in the blood. They say the night belongs to the dead. But in the city of Nithera, the dead had kingdoms, and thrones made of shadow. The wind curled through its blackened alleys, whispering secrets that never died. Somewhere deep in the marrow of the world, a name long buried stirred once more, Vanyr'Thal. A house thought extinguished by time and war, now seen again in the curling smoke of street fires, its sigil scorched into brick walls, whispered in dreams, etched in blood and ash. Cain Vex had returned. Once exiled, he rose again, an heir forged in fire and silence, a king the world had tried to forget. His eyes held centuries. His steps echoed with vengeance. They had called him myth. Monster. Forgotten. But now, they remembered. And at his side moved the one who was never truly still. Zalira. Crowned not in gold, but in moonlight. She moved like prophecy, gentle, patient, inevitable. Her silence was sharper than blades, her presence heavier than thunderclouds. Let the living tremble, her voice carried like breath on the wind, for the dead remember everything. And somewhere, the blood listened. The House of Vanyr'Thal, Part 2. Ancient chants whispered through the night air, the soft toll of bells weaving between the winds like echoes of forgotten gods. But when forbidden magic stirred beneath the bones of the earth and the Nightborn began to awaken, it came with a price. One soul would be shattered, and a long-buried truth would bleed into the present. A mystic's voice rose from the darkness, he who leads the dead, must die a second death. Then came the silence, deep, infinite. And after it, the drums. A heartbeat of fate, the crimson wind returned, this time softer, trailing behind it the mournful notes of a harp that seemed to remember love better than those who once felt it. Among the vampire clans, love was a rarity. To love without madness was a miracle. And yet, Cain Vex and Zalira had once been nothing more than mortal hearts, fierce, fragile, and whole. You never told me why you chose exile, Zalira whispered into the quiet between them. Cain's voice was low, steady as the night, but worn with memory. Because I feared losing you more than I feared death. Music swelled around them, then splintered like glass, distant blades clashing in the dark. In the ruins of Vanyr'Thal, the phantom blade was found, buried beneath centuries of dust and deceit. It trembled with memory, revealing what none dared speak, a betrayal within the house itself. She is the daughter of the betrayer, an elder hissed, his voice sharp as ash. She cannot wear the crown. Cain rose, fury rippling through every word. She is my queen. And she needs no crown to command blood. As his voice faded into the ether, the wind shifted once more, a breath held by the world itself. The House of Vanyr'Thal had awakened. And from this night forward, the world would never sleep again. Part 3, The Black Veil Prophecy. Legends whispered of the Black Veil, a prophecy so ancient, its words survived only in fractured tongues and haunted lullabies. Most believed it myth, a tale to quiet fledglings or stir the blood-hungry. But among the oldest, it was known to be scripture. They spoke of a time when the blood of Vanyr'Thal would flow beneath the twin moons, and the sleeping king would awaken. But Cain Vex had not slept. He had waited. For centuries, he watched from the shadows, letting the world forget his name so he could sharpen it into a blade. And now, beneath the pale gaze of the twin moons, that blade gleamed anew. Zalira found the scroll first, buried beneath the crypt temple of the Ashbone Seers, its edges scorched, the ink pulsing faintly with forbidden magic. The words leapt from the parchment and into her blood. When the blood of Vanyr'Thal flows beneath the twin moons, she whispered, the sleeping king shall awaken. Cain stood beside her, quiet as stone. I was never asleep, he said. I was waiting. The ground shifted. Wind stirred where there should be none. The veil between worlds thinned like old lace, and then the chanting began. From deep within the earth, voices rose in a language not spoken aloud since the last eclipse of the elder sun. The Nightborn, creatures of sorrow and shadow, stirred in their tombs. But prophecy always demands a price. To awaken the dead, one soul must shatter. To open the path, one truth must bleed. And somewhere, far away but growing closer, a mystic spoke the final line, "He who leads the dead, must die a second death." Part 4, Blade of the Lost Heart. The crimson wind rose like a war cry across the high spires of Nithera. Storm clouds spiraled as if pulled by ancient breath, and at the heart of the chaos stood Cain Vex, his silhouette framed by a sky split in half, red and black. He gripped the phantom blade of Vanyr'Thal, its hilt still humming from the memory it had unveiled. A betrayal. One older than the fall of the Vanyr'Thal, older than Cain's exile. The blade had shown him everything. A hidden chamber beneath the old throne room. A shadowed figure placing poisoned bloodroot into his father's chalice. And a girl, wide-eyed, trembling, watching from behind a velvet curtain. Zalira. The realization cracked something inside him. "You never told me why you chose exile," she had whispered once, beneath moon-drenched sheets. "I feared losing you more than I feared death," he had answered. Now he saw what he hadn't before. Zalira's lineage, it carried the blood of the betrayer. The council gathered at the Hall of Thorns, their eyes glowing like dying stars. "She is the daughter of the one who shattered our bloodline," spat Elder Varn. "She cannot wear the crown." Cain stepped forward, voice thunderous, wrath barely chained. "She is my queen," he growled. "And she needs no crown to command blood." Outside, war drums began to beat. Not distant. Not metaphor. The Crimson Guard of the Onyx Covenant had arrived, their banners burning with the glyphs of war. They had declared the House of Vanyr'Thal an abomination. A blasphemy. Cain looked to Zalira, her eyes steady even as the sky wept blood. "No more secrets," she said. "No more silence," he replied. Together, they unsheathed their blades. The walls of the hall trembled as the first clash rang out. Steel met steel, flesh met flame. Through it all, Cain fought like prophecy incarnate, and Zalira, she danced through shadows like vengeance reborn. By dawn, the hall was quiet again. Blood pooled at their feet, enemy, kin, traitor. All the same now. The House of Vanyr'Thal had awakened. And the world would never sleep again. The blood hadn't even cooled on the stone when the wind shifted again. Not the natural wind, no, this one crawled like a whisper under the skin, dragging shadow behind every breath. From the eastern gate of the ruined courtyard, a figure emerged. Hooded. Faceless. Radiating something that made even the dead still their cries. Cain instinctively stepped in front of Zalira. The air trembled. The phantom blade in his hand screamed, not in steel, but in soul. The figure spoke, and its voice came from everywhere. "The line has awakened. The throne breathes again. So tell me, King of Ash, Queen of Silence, have you taught them the word yet?" Zalira's eyes narrowed. "You were banished beyond the fold." The figure raised its hand, revealing a scorched medallion, the sigil of Vanyr'Thal turned upside down. Cain's jaw tightened. "You carry the mark of the Forsaken." A pulse burst from the medallion, rippling the earth like thunder underwater. Stone cracked. Trees bled. And from the cracks crawled creatures half shadow, half memory, the lost born. Eyes weeping smoke. Teeth etched with runes. Once Vanyr'Thal, now corrupted. Cain spun his blade. Zalira unfurled her sleeves, revealing twin daggers alive with silver fire. They moved as one, a single mind split between two bodies forged in war and myth. He fought with fury. She danced with purpose. And together, they cut through the dark like vengeance made flesh. But for every creature slain, two more rose. Then the figure raised its arm again and whispered the forbidden invocation, "Listen to'd." Time hiccuped. Cain froze mid-strike. Zalira's blade halted inches from her foe's neck. The air rippled like glass flexing under pressure. Their bodies remained, but their souls, were pulled. Pulled somewhere deep. Somewhere else. Cain fell to one knee, blood pouring from his eyes like ink. Zalira collapsed beside him, her lips moving soundlessly, chanting protection rites long forgotten. And the voice returned, low, ancient, inside their minds. Show me what you really are, Cain Vex. Zalira of the Moonbound. Or the world will know the House of Vanyr'Thal, as its final curse. Black lightning tore open the sky. And then, silence. To be continued. Final scene, the blood that remembers. Darkness wasn't just around them now. It was inside them. Cain could feel it, coiling, ancient, 1,000 voices murmuring beneath his skin like a forgotten choir. Not fear. Not weakness. Something older. Something that had always waited. And Zalira. Zalira was glowing. Her body no longer cast shadows. She devoured them. The daggers in her hands burned with violet flame, but her eyes were made of starlight and sorrow, locked on Cain like she'd seen this fate in 1,000 dreams. He rose. Slowly. Not as a man. Not even as a king, as something else. The cracked earth below him sealed. The rain fell upward. Every lost-born creature backed away, hissing, their runes pulsing with dread. Even the hooded figure took a step back. Zalira's voice shattered the stillness. We are not your prophecy. Cain raised his blade. We are its end. And then the world tilted. Cain moved first, faster than breath. One clean arc of his blade, and a storm unfurled behind him. Blood. Wind. Fire. Time cracked open at the seams. Zalira followed, her scream a banshee's lullaby, slicing through shadows that had haunted bloodlines for centuries. They fought like a memory of vengeance that never died. Each strike a poem. Each step a promise. The figure howled as its medallion cracked. A shockwave exploded from its chest, sending Cain and Zalira hurling backwards. The courtyard collapsed. Stone. Bone. History. Smoke swallowed everything. But from the rubble, two figures rose. Side by side. Alive. Changed. Cain turned to her, blood streaking down his brow. You saw it, didn't you? Zalira nodded. We've only just begun. The clouds swirled above, shaped like a crown burning in the sky. Far off, cities began to whisper a name not heard in centuries. Vanyr'Thal. And deep beneath the earth, something stirred. Watching. Listening. Waiting for the blood that remembers. End of chapter 1.